Okay, today's lesson is on buying a car. The things we're going to look at are the whole process of getting a vehicle. You see all the different things we're going to consider today. So there's quite a bit to actually making the decision on what car to buy and then how to pay for it. Some things you want to consider when you're picking a vehicle, especially as it relates to economics and your finances. First off is your fuel efficiency. What you want to do is see what actually the fuel efficiency is, and this is normally stated in miles per gallon. There'll be two stated ones. There'll be one for city driving, and this is based on not only driving at slower speeds, but doing a lot of stop and go city driving. You'll also have a highway miles per gallon, which is based on driving faster, more steady speeds, and that highway miles per gallon tends to be higher than your city miles per gallon. Now, as this relates to finance, is the lower your miles per gallon for that vehicle, the higher your fuel cost is going to be every month for whatever amount of driving you do compared to something that has better fuel efficiency. Now, there are some hybrids out there. Now, a hybrid vehicle is a combination of a gasoline engine and electric power. There are also all electric vehicles that are more fuel efficient, and them you just charge up. With the hybrid, it will run off the battery until either the battery gets low or the demand that you're putting on it cannot be met by the electric motor, so then the gas engine kicks in. A lot of times this is with rapid acceleration. Uh, Now, you have to keep in mind, though, is that these hybrids and all electrics, although they're more fuel efficient, they tend to cost more when you purchase them than similar gas powered vehicles. Another thing you want to consider is cargo capacity. What do you need to be able to haul? Do you have to haul a lot of people? Do you have to haul a lot of things? Do you have to haul both? So you can get larger vehicles if you do have to haul more people or more things than regular passenger vehicles. You've got minivans and sport utility vehicles that you can buy. If you need to just haul stuff, but you really don't necessarily need to haul a lot of people, trucks might be a good option. Thing is, though, is that these larger vehicles, because they're heavier, generally have bigger engines. Those tend to have worse fuel efficiency. So you'll pay more in gas for those also. Another thing you want to consider is the performance of the vehicle, the acceleration that it does, the stopping that it does. Does it perform the way that you want it to or need it to? Do you need something that could tow maybe a boat or a trailer or something along those lines? Then also you want to look, do you want just simple true wheel drive, or would you prefer to get the four wheel drive, which is more for all terrain? Or there's even some all wheel drive options where the four wheel drive is continuously engaged as opposed to a four wheel drive, which that capability would be on demand. Also think about what options you want to have. Do you want a specific type of stereo system? Would you want a DVD player in it? Maybe the moon roofs or the remote keyless entries, or there's a lot of different options you can get, whether it's the style of the seat, what it's made out of. Uh, there's a lot of different options packages that automobiles will have that will come pre-bundled with a variety of options. But that's definitely something you want to consider. Of course, the more app options that you get, the more that vehicle is going to cost. You also want to look at the reliability of the vehicle. Definitely do some research. Check out the reliability, check out the reputation of the vehicle. You may find a car that you think is really good, but then when you actually research what other people think of it, you find out that maybe the car doesn't run as well as you think. Maybe it historically has transmission problems, which could be an expensive repair, or things along those lines. Next question you're going to have to ask yourself is, do you want to get a new car or would you like to get a used car? Now, there are pros and cons to both. Obviously with the new car, you're going to be the first owner, and that's great. You don't have to worry about what somebody else has done to it. It will generally come with warranties, and the warranties are could be a bumper to bumper, which means if anything goes wrong on it for a certain amount of time or a certain number of miles, it'll be repaired or replaced for free. Specific things like the engine and the powertrain, in other words, the transmission and the axles and stuff, may have longer warranties. And this just simply means that if those parts break, then you won't have to pay for it as long as it's under warranty. The thing you have to keep in mind, though, is that your new car is going to lose at least 30% of its resale value in the first 2 years. In fact, the minute you drive it off the lot, it's going to lose several $1,000s in value, excuse me. Used car, the thing you have to deal with there is obviously it's been owned by one or possibly more other owners. Uh, the price is definitely going to be lower than a similar new car. So if you can find one in really good condition, you may consider buying that and be able to save several thousand over having to buy almost the identical car but brand new. The thing is, you have to worry about is what did the previous owner or owners do to it or not do to it? Did they maintain it properly? How did they drive it? Perhaps there might be some mechanical issues that are going to come up because of the way they took care of it that you may not be aware of or wouldn't have to deal with if it was a new car. So if you're going to make a new car purchase, you're going to own the vehicle. So of course, if you're getting out a loan, you don't own it free and clear until the loan is paid off. Now, with the new car, you can pretty much do whatever you want with it. If you want to put a better stereo, you want to lift it, you want to lower it, you want to customize it, change the paint, whatever it might be, it's yours and you can do that. But when you look at the price, it is going to be relatively high compared to a similar used car. So you will be paying a premium for owning a brand new vehicle. And then if you look at the monthly payments, the monthly payment on those is going to be relatively high, especially when you compare it to something called a lease, which is what we're going to discuss next. Now, a lease is where you're basically renting the vehicle, more or less what you're doing. You're paying somebody else for the privilege of driving their car. Generally, it's that dealership. What you'll do is you'll sign a lease, and just like a lease for an apartment, this lease for that vehicle will be for a set term. Might be 3 years, might be 5 years. Um, when the lease is over, you have your choice of either just returning the vehicle, handing over the keys, or if you want to keep it, you can actually purchase it for what is called the residual value that's in your lease agreement. When you sign the lease agreement, it'll say at the end of the lease, we will value the car at X amount of dollars. So if you have abided by the lease agreement, haven't gone over in your mileage, you can buy it at that point, and then you have to buy it for whatever the residual value actually is at that time. You'll have to make an initial payment on it. They may require you to pay several months as a upfront cost, uh, and you'll have to pay that before you drive the car off the lot. And whoever you're leasing the vehicle from is going to set whatever that amount is. Uh, Now, if you do an initial payment, like a large payment up front, you can actually lower your monthly lease payment because you're basically paying some of that lease up ahead of time in just a lump sum. When you do lease a vehicle, it does turn out to be cheaper and cost you less than if the vehicle was purchased outright. Back in the early 90s, I leased a Toyota 4Runner. And I leased it for almost $500. It was $479 a month. If I would have bought that exact vehicle and bought it instead of leased it, my monthly payment would have been $615. So it was over $100, almost $150 difference in what I was paying per month by leasing it rather than purchasing it outright. So if you know you don't want to hang on to the car for long term, or you don't want to trick it out, lift it, lower it, change the sound system, make those major modifications, then a lease might be a better option for you because you can drive it and you just hand over the keys and move on to whatever your next vehicle is going to be. Thing you have to keep in mind is that the lease is going to be fairly restrictive on certain things. Biggest one is mileage because they're going to compute the residual value based on what the anticipated mileage will be at the end. That's a big thing that drives the price of a used vehicle. And if you've exceeded those mileage limits, they're going to make you pay for every mile over the mileage limits that you exceeded. And that could get to be pretty hefty, especially if you've gone several thousand miles over. It could be a several $1,000 chunk of change that you need to pay just to turn the keys back over on that lease. Now, if you buy a used car, obviously, just like with a new car, you're going to own it once you pay it off if you purchase it with a loan, or just own it outright if you paid cash. Just like with the new car, you can fix it up however you want. You can trick it out, change the stereo, you name it. And relative to a new car, the price is going to be relatively low. The big things that are going to drive the price of that vehicle, first off, is the age. Well, obviously, what kind of vehicle it is and what its original selling price was, but then also how old the vehicle, how many miles are on it, what the condition is, and if there's anything in the vehicle history, which you can get out of what's called a Carfax vehicle history report. You can get this on any vehicle, and it's going to have anything that's been reported being done to the vehicle. It could be something simple as a lot of the major dealerships, if you get your oil change there, they're going to put the fact that the oil got changed, they're going to put the mileage in and enter that into Carfax. But definitely if the vehicle has been in an accident, if it has been in a flood or a hurricane, if it's had a major repair done to it, you're going to want to know that because that's going to affect what the actual value of the vehicle is. The more problems it has in history, the less that vehicle is going to be worth. The worse the condition, the less the vehicle is going to be worth. The higher the mileage, the less the vehicle is going to be worth. And of course, the older the vehicle, the less it's going to be worth. So all those things will go into driving the price of the vehicle. And one of the things you definitely want to do is find out what the fair market value is. You can do this kind of research on a variety of websites. Two of the most common ones are Kelley Blue Book and Edmunds. And what you can do is you can look up what the actual fair market value is, what that car is on average selling for, where you live, to make sure you're not overpaying for the vehicle, or perhaps that you're getting a good deal. And in fact, the assignment that's associated with this lesson will have you checking out either Kelley Blue Book or Edmunds on whatever vehicle it is that you choose. Now, when you're going to get a loan, it will be a secured term loan. So you're set at 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. I've seen them. And you will pledge the car as collateral. So if you stop making payments on that car loan, they're going to come repossess the car. So the repo man will come visiting, and you might be at work. You're inside. Next thing you know, repo man is hooking up that tow truck to your vehicle and hauling it off. The interest rates on used cars, because there is more of a risk that that car break down and then you stop paying on it because the car has problems. They're going to charge you a higher interest rate on a used car than on a new car. Two identical loans, say it's a 5-year fixed loan for a new car for X amount of thousands of dollars, will actually have a lower interest rate than a used car for that same amount as far as purchase price and same term for that loan. So just know the interest rates are slightly higher on used cars than they are on new cars. Big thing you have to keep in mind on used car, usually lenders will set a maximum age for how old the car can be for them to actually loan the money. The most common one I've seen is a maximum of, say, 7 years. So what they're worried about is that after 7 years, if the car is older than that, and then you try to get another 5 or 6 year loan on top of that, that by the time that loan is paid off, the car may either be worth so little or it might have had problems during that. And then you default on the loan because you're like, well, the car is broken. It doesn't work. I'm not going to continue paying on it. So they might say, hey, we're not going to loan out on a used car loan for any more than a 7-year-old vehicle because they don't want to take the risk of something happening during that later part of that vehicle's life when you have the loan out on it and they risk not getting paid. Some things are going to drive your monthly payment on both the loans and the lease. Well, first off, what's the purchase price of the vehicle? What's the loan amount? And that's just simply the purchase price minus the down payment. If you put some money down on the vehicle before you actually take out a loan for the rest, you can actually lower how much you're borrowing, which you can lower your monthly payment. Common rule of thumb is if you put down 20% or more, what that's going to do is prevent you from going upside down on the loan. What that simply means is, especially for a new car, you drive that car off the lot and it's going to be worth $3,000 to $5,000 less than you just bought it for, just because now it's a used car. Well, you still owe the full amount. On a typical 5-year loan, you will owe more on that vehicle, which means it's upside down, than the vehicle is actually worth for about the first 3 years. So if you don't want to run the risk of wanting to get rid of the vehicle while you still have the loan on it, maybe trade it in on another one, or just flat out sell it and then pay off the loan. By putting 20% down or more, you're going to prevent yourself from potentially owing more on the vehicle than it's worth. And not only that, but that down payment will then lower the amount that you borrow, which of course will lower the amount of your monthly payment. Second thing that's going to determine the monthly payment is the length. That gets factored in just like any of the other loans we looked at. What interest rate that they're using to calculate both either your loan payment or your lease payment. And that, of course, is driven by your credit score, number one, as well as the length of the loan or the lease. The longer the loan is for, the higher the interest rate is going to be. Just like on any other loan that we discussed in the credit basics lesson, you'll pay a higher interest rate, but it may actually reduce the monthly payment by extending the term of that loan. But then the big thing that's going to drive the interest rate is your credit score. And we discussed that in the credit worthiness lesson. And then lastly, whether it's a new or used vehicle. Remember, the new interest rates will be slightly lower than used car interest rates for everything else being identical. Same term, same credit score. A used car loan will have a higher interest rate than a new car loan. When you buy a car, some things you have to pay for, obviously, is the purchase price. But in the state of Virginia, you're going to have to pay a sales and use tax for the motor vehicle. And that is either $75 or 4.05% of the sales price, whichever is greater. The state's going to get a minimum of $75. So you would have to, and this is when you go buy your tags and try to get your license plates and get the thing put titled into your name, you're going to have to pay the sales and use tax, whether it's a new car or a used car. You'll also have to pay for the tags. Those are your license plates. It's $26 a year and could be more, depending if you want to get some of those custom plates. And that's a fee you're going to have to pay every year. Of course, you can prepay that for up to 3 years and get your tags for 3 years before you have to renew them. But of course, then that's more money out of pocket. And then you actually need to get title for the vehicle. Now, title is just a legal term that refers to a document that will recognize you as the official owner of that vehicle with your state. So by getting title, what that does is puts you on the title saying you are the owner of this vehicle. And in the state of Virginia, that registration fee is between $40 and $50. Depends on the value of the vehicle at purchase. Some ongoing costs you'll have to deal with. First off is insurance. You'll need to get it insured. We'll be talking about that in the next lesson. The monthly premium that you will be charged will be determined by one, what you're driving, two, you and your driving record, and three, what types of coverage and what levels of coverage, including what deductibles you're setting, will all play into that. And we'll be discussing insurance in much more detail in the next lesson. So I'm not going to get into that too much now. Just know that you will have a premium that could be higher depending on either the value of the vehicle, the type of vehicle, and the loss experience that they have with that vehicle. Your driving record is going to play into it, as well as how much coverage you want to have and what you want to set your deductibles for. The annual fees you're going to have to pay. Well, first, you're going to have to pay for the tags every year. You have to get the vehicle inspected every year, including in a lot of areas an emissions inspection. What that means, they're going to check to make sure that it's not polluting the air too much. And then every year in the state of Virginia, you pay a personal property tax on cars, trailers, things along those lines. So that's a fee you'll have to pay every year. Usually you get hit with that around November timeframe. You'll have to pay for maintenance. The vehicle's going to need an oil change. It varies by vehicle. It used to be the common recommendation was 3,000 miles or 3 months. That doesn't necessarily hold true. You need to just check what the owner's manual says as far as how often you should change the oil. Some vehicles have a feature, I know mine does. It'll tell you how much life you have left on the oil, and it'll count it down. And you can either get it changed when you feel like you want to, as long as it hasn't gone too low, or your car will give you an alert on, hey, the oil needs to be changed. Tires need to be replaced periodically. They do wear down. And any other scheduled maintenance. You may need to flush the radiator, change the transmission oil, get new brakes put on it, things along those lines. And then, of course, there's the unscheduled maintenance and repairs. Your cars, the parts will wear out. The starter may stop working. The water pump, oil pump may stop. Fuel pump may stop working. Now, repair on these and replacement can actually be really expensive. Your typical replacement of what's called a timing belt. This is the thing that attaches between the drive shaft and the camshaft that controls the valves. Basically, it opens and closes the valves uh, in time so that the valves are open and closed when they need to be when the engine's firing on any given cylinder. That could cost upwards of $1,500. Some of that's parts, but most of it is the charge for labor, because essentially they have to remove everything off the front of the engine and put this new timing belt on. It can be very, very expensive, and that's something that needs to be planned for also. You should budget for and save about $200 to $500 per year to put in a savings for at least one medium-sized maintenance or repair. Of course, if you don't need that, that money's just going to be there earning you money, and it's going to help you sleep well at night. Should you need it, the money's there. You're not having to do something bad like, say, put it on credit to pay for the repair. And that concludes this lesson. You'll be moving on to the finding and financing a vehicle assignment right now.